Hey guys, welcome to the Scholar Online YouTube channel, the channel that is all about learning. So today I am showing my face. Yay, okay. So today we're gonna do something a little bit different. We're recording the video that I'm going to be showing you, and we're showing my face. And let me know if this arrangement sort of works a little bit better for you. But in today's video, I'm going to take you through the process of building GPTs, all right? I'm going to build a working GPT and I'll demonstrate it to you later, but let's get to the admin of the video first. So remember to like this video that you're watching. Remember to subscribe to our channel and turn on those notifications so that you're informed every time that we release a new video. And that also helps with the algorithm to make our video visible to more and more people, but I don't know how much that really works really. But anyway, open up the description of the video that you're watching right now, and if you hear me say, I'm going to link it in the description below. That's where you're going to find all the links. So I'm going to link everything that's useful from what we're discussing here today in the description of the video that you're watching below. All right. I will also link social media. I will also link, useful things. If you want to get in touch with me, my email address will be there as well in the description of the video that you're watching. All right. Today we are building a GPT. All right. We are building a GPT. So I'm going to actually refresh this. And I have built a GPT, and it is called a QR code generator. And I'm going to build this GPT right here on this channel in less than 36 minutes. Actually, that's how long that video was. All right. And users can come here and you can say, you can ask it, please get me a QR code. Get me a QR code. And when you ask a question and you haven't provided the data that must be encoded, it will ask you, please, what is it that I need to show? I can help with the QR code, but what must be encoded in the QR code? Because you need to encode something into the QR code, all right? So we're going to encode our YouTube channel, all right? So let's go to our Scholar Online YouTube channel. And this is a link to the YouTube channel. And I'm going to say, please encode this link to our channel into the QR code. Awesome. Please encode this into the QR code, and it's going to go and it's starting an action, and it asks you to confirm because we are talking to a third party. We've added an action here which connects to a third party API, and so users have to actually confirm that that they're allowing ChatGPT to talk to that. So I'm going to confirm over there, and then it's going to start the action, and it's going to go and generate the QR code. And it's very quick, that process of generating the QR code. It immediately comes back with the QR code, and you can see it's going to display the QR code to you, which it's an image that you can just download and save. Otherwise, it gives you a link as well to the video, which you can open in a new tab, and you can have, there's your QR code. You can download it from there, or just take the link and take the link everywhere that you want. But a QR code is really just an image that you can print on a business card or somewhere on your website. People can just easily scan this, and you can take your phone right now, pause this video, scan this, and make sure that this actually takes you where I said it's going to take you, right? So that's what we're going to do in the video here today. So get your coding fingers ready and let's get started. This week, I think it was Monday, ChatGPT released the GPTs, the functionality. Well, they've always been there. You could always build your GPTs, but for the first time, they sort of rolled out the GPT Store, which means that you can build your GPT and then you can let other people use it. And so I thought, what's one of the simplest GPT that I can build so I can demonstrate to you how to use the GPT's function specifically to connect to an outside API, because I've seen a lot of GPTs which just sort of add extra data to ChatGPT but don't really add extra functionality. So today we're going to create an extra functionality which connects to an outside API to generate something that you wouldn't have been able to do with GPT as it is. So we're going to enhance the functionality of GPT. What are we going to do? We are going to build right here on this channel a GPT that can generate a QR code from data. Okay, so we're going to call it QR code GPT. Let's try. So if you're on ChatGPT, like where we are right now, and you've got GPT-4, you should be able to go to the bottom there and you'll see where it says My GPTs. Just click on it and you can open up this page. I've already played around with creating GPTs, and I'm gonna so I've got one here, so at least I've got a working API that I'm gonna be able to piggyback off of to make this video go even quicker. But just click at the top there where it says create GPT, and then you're able to create your own GPT. And when it comes, and then you've got two sort of tabs there. You've got create, and then you've got configure. Configure is where you want to be. Let's name our GPT. Let's call it QR Code Generator, so that it's very clear. If somebody looks at this, they know exactly what you're talking about. Create QR codes quickly on ChatGPT. Create QR codes quickly on ChatGPT. What else would we need? You need a sort of a profile image. So I'm going to open up ChatGPT again in another window. Chat. All right. And then I'm going to go into the normal ChatGPT. And then I'm going to ask please generate me a logo that looks like a QR code. That's it. So I'm going to generate the image that I'm going to use right now on ChatGPT, and I'm going to go back over there, and then I'm going to edit there. So the instructions are very simple. So while we are waiting for that image to generate, we're going to give it instructions. Users may request a QR code. When a QR code is requested, run the action requested. Make sure that the user has provided the data that needs to be coded into the QR code. If they have not provided this data, please request the data. Then call the action, the available action, to generate the QR code. The action will return a URL with the QR code image. Okay, display the image for the user, and also show them the link in case they want to copy and paste it. All right, at the top here, I want to give this GPT very explicit instructions around its functionality, okay? So you are a QR code generator, GPT, okay? You provide QR code to users when they request them, okay? Simple enough. So after we've done that, conversation starters, generate a QR code. All right, encode this data into a QR code. I'm just gonna do it too because I don't know how many more ways you could talk about QR codes. So let's see the image that has been generated over here. Let's try regenerate another one, see if it can make something a little bit fancy. Or you can play around with this and like ask it to please give me a fancier QR code type. I don't know, let's just see. We're waiting. Let's see what else we need to knowledge. We're not going to add any knowledge files, but what the knowledge functionality is, if you are generating a GPT that has additional sort of like appended data that is not available to the normal ChatGPT, you can use this. All right, so if you want to add other documents, you want to add other functionalities, you can do that. But we're not going to add any extra data because we're just generating that. Okay. So you've got this, it's got a black background, and the one we had before, it's got white background. Okay, I like this one. So I'm going to just download this very quickly. And then I'm going to go up here, and under the image, I'm going to click there. And I'm going to say upload a photo. Or you could just use DALL-E from the, I missed that. There you go. QR Code Generator. Cool. Then after we've done that, do we need to enable web browsing? That's okay. Let's enable it so that it can display the image. DALL-E image generation. I don't think we need that. I don't think we need that, and I don't think we need code interpreter, but let's leave the thing. So the most important thing, and what we're going to play around here is the action. It's the actions, all right? So maybe in another tutorial in the future, I will do something where you can work with uploading files, and you can create a GPT that has additional knowledge, like an organizational GPT for knowledge base or things like that. So but for now, I'll just go into actions, and this is where you can tie into external sources, external APIs, external data sources that you can connect to in real time and be able to get actions out of this. So I'm going to add in here an action that talks to an API. It's going to be an external API, and this API is going to accept data, and then it's going to get that data and it's going to code it into a QR code, and then it's going to save that QR code in a location where there's an image of it, and then it's going to send back to ChatGPT a URL to the location of that QR code, and then ChatGPT will display it and allow the user to download. So it's very, very simple. And I built all of this inside of Python Django. And unfortunately, I won't be able to go into the whole process of building the Django application because that will defeat my purpose, and I will spend another 2 hours here. But so you're going to need to have one of two things: a working API or a Django application that has REST. We're going to be using the Django Rest Framework. So the Django Rest Framework is a library that bolts onto a normal Django application and allows you to create sort of API endpoints that you can connect to. This is really, really useful. And perhaps, I don't know if I've done a Django Rest Framework tutorial, but just if you're interested in getting to work with Django Rest Framework, just like in the comments below, just let me know, and then maybe I'll do a full-fledged Django Rest Framework tutorial. Okay, but for today, I'm going to assume you've got a Django Rest Framework application. And the second thing that you're going to need is this Django Rest framework key, API key, so that you can be able to at least secure your API endpoint. I'll show you how to do it, but I'm not going to actually implement it because it's also going to take a little bit more time to do that. So for now, these are the two libraries that you need, and if you know how to read documentation, you might be able to figure it out yourself to be able to create what I have already created. So there's 3 things you need to get started, and these are the 3 files I've already opened. The first one is a view. Within the Django Rest Framework, you create API views. These are the API endpoints that people connect to, and then you do whatever you need to process, and then you send back a response with the information. So our endpoint, we've decided to call it Get QR Code, and at the top there you'll see we've added a decorator API view, and it's a post API endpoint, which means that to connect to this endpoint, you're going to need to send a post request and then with a payload. And within that payload, it could be like a JSON payload, and there needs to be a key that is called the data. And within that key that is called the data, we're going to put in the data that we want to encode. And please let it be a string. Do not complicate things. Send it as a string, and then I'm going to take this string and I'm going to encode it into a QR code function. So we'll go into this QR code function a little bit later. But there's a QR code function that takes in the data and it returns the URL. This URL, we send it back to the user via the response function, okay? And if you look at this code that I've written here, this response function is all, you get it from the Django Rest Framework library, including the API view decorator. And if you needed to have authentication, you would have these permission classes, but we're not using them right now. We're only using the API view decorator. These are also decorators, by the way, if you need to decorate your function into having like some authentication, which means people need to be authenticated to access this function. Now, if you're familiar with Django Rest Framework, there's multiple levels and multiple types of authentication. You could have everything from bearer type token authentication up to a sort of basic authentication where the user has to just enter username and password, or you could have no authentication required, which is what we are going to do for simplicity. Our endpoint is not protected by any sort of authentication. Of course, this is dangerous because people might crowd your API, and because I'm recording this as a video, I'm not overly worried about that. I will quickly add the authentication as soon as this video is done. So if you hit this endpoint by the time you're watching the video, you might find that you need to be authenticated. And so, but anyway, for now, there'll be no authentication for simplicity. All right. And then the QR code function itself is also very, very simple. All right. So we are going to use a library in Python that is called a QR code, and you just basically need to install this library by saying pip install QR code. So if you just copy this into wherever you're coding from, all right, something like this, right, and then you just say pip install QR code, that's it. You just run this and it will install your QR code library. So I've already done this because I've already tested this to be working before I recorded this video. And then I'm going to create another file that I'm going to call QR codes, all right? And in this file, I've got very simple things. I think I don't need that, right? I've got very simple function to generate the QR code. All right. So the first thing I do is that I import the QR code. And if you look at the documentation for QR code, it's like 3 lines of code, right? You import the QR code and then you create a variable called, you can call it anything, but we're calling it img. And in this variable, you just say QR code make, and you enter the data in there as a string. So this takes in a string argument. You could code a URL, which is a lot of what these QR code generators are used for. So like a business card, you've got a QR code in there. You've got a URL and you encode it into a QR code and you print it at the back of your business card, and you just show people and they can just like scan it and go straight to your website. It's a very useful functionality for this. But technically you could encode anything in string format. You could even encode your personal information, like your contact information. So you could have one of those digital business cards that you print out a QR code, but inside the QR code you code your name, your address, your everything that people can scan that and immediately get all of that information in a link or something like that. So you could basically encode anything in there. And after you've done that, this is not required. This is not required. It's optional. What you need is just to take that img object and save, and then give it a path. All right. So this can be a relative or an absolute path, but it needs to be a path where you want to save your QR code within the computer that you're in, and it's a PNG file. So you need to give it a PNG sort of like file extension. So what I've rewritten this code to sort of suit my use case. The first thing is that I've imported UUID4, and to get this to work, you just need to run pip install UUID, okay? So you need to just say pip install like this. The reason for this is so that I can create unique identifiers to name my files, so that I don't name them on top of each other. Because if I gave it like a hard-coded name and people were using this, a lot of people at a time, the names could write over each other, right? So I'm sort of like using the UUID to generate a unique ID, which I then use to save the QR code as a PNG, and I give it a direct path in this computer to save it. Now, this is the tricky part, and this is the part that needs a little bit of homework. So if you're watching this video, you need to do something a little bit extra to get this working. So lucky for me, and to save your time, I have already I've already done a GPT before, and this GPT that I've done, so I'll show you a little bit later. I've already loaded an HTTPS location so that I could host my API. So I've already hosted my API, and now I just quickly added to that location a new folder called QR codes, and within that folder I just used Nginx to serve that folder over HTTPS. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, is basically I created a folder in my VPS that I could host on the internet, and because when you're talking to ChatGPT or an outside sort of, endpoint, you want to be able to give them the QR code as a link that they can just display to the user, because you don't know that you can't send this QR code as file data back to ChatGPT. So this takes a little bit of time, and if you don't know how to use Nginx is a proxy server. If you don't know how to use Nginx to just serve a simple folder within an HTTPS location, just let me know. Maybe I can do a tutorial on this, but it's pretty straightforward. Maybe we'll do a Nginx tutorial if it's important. Just let us know. But the point is, I am serving this folder in this location called https documentwizard.com. This is a location that's served over Nginx, and in there I put my image PNG file. And then that image PNG file that I put in there, I then return that URL location. The only thing that is going to be dynamic in this function is the UUID itself, because this UUID will represent the file name of the PNG QR code that I've just generated, and this file name will change all the time. So every time somebody makes this request, this will create a new UUID and it will create a new file. So this location will end up having lots and lots and lots of files. So what I also recommend is you have another function separate to this, and I don't have to show this here, that just empties that, that empties that location every day. Okay, and you could have a rule around emptying it every hour, and then you could put it inside your privacy policy that you're going to be deleting these QR codes every hour. Okay, but I'm not going to cover that. That's just the details of it, but just some advice. For now, just know that this works. This generates the code. This gives me a unique ID that I use to name the file location and save the QR code. And then this location is already served over HTTPS. So I just need to find the link to this location to return back to the OpenAI. And that's all I'm doing over here, okay? And if you look at my view function is just calling that, which means what it gets over here is a link. All right, and then you just need to then sort out the URL. Okay, so in my URLs, you'll see over here I've got other URLs that I'm already running over here. Just ignore these. The URL you need to look at is this one over there. Is a URL that is called get QR code, because it's a URL that calls the views.get QR code function, which is this function over here, def get QR code, that takes in a request. It's a post function. Okay, so that's all this URL is doing, and then it's on this endpoint called get QR code, and my what we call my base URL is actually documentwizard.com. all right, and then it's got an API version 1 sort of like addition added to it, and then you add this get QR code at the end. So this endpoint we can test on Postman. So when you're building an API, always test it on Postman. Okay, so I've actually tested it a little bit earlier, but I can create a new Postman thingy, and you can see how exactly I've done it. So paste the URL over there. You'll see this is the base URL of our application, and this is already live on the internet. I've already done this previously. So you need a live URL. This is the sort of like the specific app itself. I've got an API app, and within that API app, I've just sort of like added this namespace, this API version 1. And this is very useful to create multiple API applications every time you update your API. So this version is version 1. If for some reason in the future, I sort of change how this QR code endpoint is going to look like, I could just generate a whole new app, right? A new app in this Django file, and within that app I would change the namespace to be version 2 or version 1.1 or whatever, and then keep the version 1 running, so that people that were already sort of like subscribe to version 1, their apps don't break, and you've updated the API. Now they can go to the later updated version, which is version 2. This is why we have this. And then this is now the endpoint within the application itself, which is this get QR code. You can see that endpoint is this endpoint there. So this Django app, this whole Django app within the main Django project, this Django app is within the namespace of API version 1.0. That's how this URL ended up being. All right. And then after you've done that, you can then you can see this is a post request. All right, so this needs to be a post request because our endpoint over here says post. All right, and then you need to enter a data that is called you need to enter like a JSON object or a you need to feed into this post. You need to post what we call like a payload that has a key called the data. All right, so over here I can go into the body of my post, right, and I'm going to go raw, and I'm gonna choose JSON, but you could use any one of these. You could even use a form if you wanted. Really, it would still work, but I'm going to use a JSON object, and within this JSON object I'm just going to have a key that I call the data. And then with this key that I call the data, you can then enter anything. The data that I enter here is the one that is going to be encoded into the QR code. So what do we want to encode? Let's encode our Scholar Online YouTube channel, right? So let's go to YouTube and look for our Scholar Online channel. All right, my channel, and let's copy that URL over there, and let's encode that. Let's encode that data. So this is going to create for me a QR code for this link, okay? So after we've done that, let's then test that this is working. And I would highly recommend you test your APIs on Postman before you attempt to connect with with ChatGPT, because you need to make sure your APIs are working. So I'm going to send this request, and there it is. It works. It sends in a JSON request. You can see the response is it's a JSON object. It's this JSON object, and the key is called QR code, and then I enter the code, which is the response from this make QR code function. Okay. And this is the URL itself. Like I said, it's a URL in this is saved inside a folder called QR codes, which I am hosting on HTTPS under this domain. All right, and then this is the UUID that was created when the file was saved as a PNG. So when this UUID was created over there for the file name, that is what was created. And if I make this again, if I make this request again, even with the same data, it will be a different UUID, because every time it goes through that process again and creates another file called PNG. All right, so this is good, and I'm gonna just post this on any HTTPS, like any browser, to see the QR code. All right, so this is the QR code that was generated, right? And if you have a phone, you can like freeze this video right here. You can pull up your phone and you can scan this QR code, and surely enough, it will be the link to our YouTube channel or whatever it is you actually wanted to code, right? So we know our API endpoint is working. We have tested it. We are going to go and now connect this to our ChatGPT, GPTs as an action, all right? And a little bit, if we have a little bit of time at the end, we can discuss the differences between GPTs and assistants. And maybe this requires a whole new video to do this, right? Let's go to our GPTs. Now, we are ready to create our action. The first thing is to sort out the authentication, right? And I will come back here and add this authentication. But for now, I'm going to leave it as none, because my endpoint does not have my endpoint does not have any authentication that's blocking it. It's not on the function itself, and it's definitely not in the settings, because there are two places you can set the authentication, and we'll go through this when we do our Django Rest tutorial. Let me know if you want to do that in the future. Then you go into your schema. There are options over here, and you can use an example, and I always go for the examples here, right? And I'm going to go for the weather JSON example, all right? Because I think this is great example. It shows you exactly the servers and everything, and you can connect to this properly, right? So I'm not going to change this because this is Open API. The title over here, this is like if you've worked with OpenAI APIs and you've worked with functions. If you worked with functions or tools, the structure is very similar. I mean, if you can see that, if you work with tools, you'll understand quickly how to get through this, all right? The title is what you're calling your action, okay? So I'm going to call this, it's definitely a get, and it is a get a QR code link. Let's be very clear that we are returning a link, all right? All right. Retrieves, let me just say, creates and returns, creates a QR code and returns the link for the image, right? Creates for the QR code image, right? Creates a QR code and returns the link for the QR code image, right? And version, this version you can update it, but let's think around this very clearly. You can see that our version is actually version 1.0. That's what we called it. So let's be consistent over here and say this is version 1.0 of the API, which means later on maybe you have version 2 or version 1.1 or whatever. And then the server. So this server is like the base URL that you're going to be working from, okay? So we're going to enter the base URL here. And I'm going to, this is actually the base URL there, this one, right? So let's paste that in there. All right, that's the base URL. And then the path is the path in which you must connect to after the base URL. And I'm going to copy all of this. All right. And then we'll see. All right, it's API version 1.0, get QR code. All right. And then the description again is get the QR code link. All right, this one you can call it anything you want as well. Get QR code. All right, the parameters, this is to tell ChatGPT what parameters it needs to extract from the prompt or whatever the user asks. So the user might say, hi, please help me generate a QR code of this link. So that is an entire statement that a user made, but you don't want ChatGPT to take the entire statement and send to you, because otherwise your QR code is going to say, hi, help me generate a QR code of this link. And then the QR code is going to say that, right? You want ChatGPT to be smart enough to look at that statement the user made and extract the specific data out of that statement that must be encoded into the QR code. So you want them to extract the data that must be encoded. So if they said, hi, please generate a QR code of this link, and they give you the link, you want ChatGPT to extract just the link, right? So you need to tell it so this works just like the ChatGPT functions and the tools, right? You tell it what exactly must be this parameter and what it must take. So you must say the name of this parameter. We have it here on our thingy. It must be called the data, right? So when it sends you the API, it must send this thing called the data. So it's not location, right? It's the data. It's in the query, yes. The description is the data that must be encoded into the QR code. The specific data, so you must tell ChatGPT, but it's smart enough to understand what you're trying to say because it reads natural language. Required, it's required. So required can be true or it can be false. So you might have multiple, these parameters you'll see is a list, right? Is a list of objects, right? So you might require more than one parameter. You might require data, you might require type. So if maybe you're going to have a data and a type is this type of data, you might have multiple. So I've simplified this to only have one sort of like parameter, but you could have multiple parameters and some of them might be optional, right? So this works exactly like the way the functions work. In my case, I have only one parameter, and that parameter is required because I can't generate the QR code without that data. And then so required in this case is true, okay? And the schema is also very, very important because ChatGPT also takes this into account. Like the schema, if you've said a string here, it will always send this parameter as a string. Like if somebody uploaded an image, for example, and you say please encode whatever, I mean, it will be like, okay, please give me something that's a string, because it must always send a string. The alternative of a string can be an enum. You could have an enum where it must be a choice between multiple things. So you have to tell ChatGPT the data type that you are expecting within your API. All right, so I'm going to leave that as string, and deprecated is false. All right, and then you'll see once you're done, I'm good with this, and you'll see over there that available actions is already sort of like written over here what those available actions are. All right, so if you think you're done with this, you can always test your API, and then you will see if that works already. So let's try and test this. So it will ask you if you must allow, and this will happen with the user as well. When you're talking to third parties, this is unavoidable. There's a step where the user must give permission and grant access that your app can actually, to allow your application, ChatGPT, to talk to an external source for security. So I will allow this, and then we'll start the action. Oh, yes. All right, so this is wrong because this is get, this is post. All right, I did overlook that. So let's test this again. I'm good with that. Perfection. So it worked perfectly, and it's going to display the QR code to the user. So this is a QR code for hello and for hello world, and you can also use the image link to download the QR code. So let me see if I um, right click this link, open in a new tab. There you go. So I asked it to do these two things, and this was in the instructions, if you remember. Please display the QR code, but also give the user the option to download the link, because maybe they don't want to download the image, they just want the link, and they can use the link somewhere else. Okay, so I think I'm happy. So I've tested my GPT. Everything looks good. You can then save your GPT once you've tested it. So I'm going to save, and you've got three options when you're saving. You've got only me, you've got anyone with a link, and you've got everyone. So for now, I'm going to save to only me. If you save to anyone with a link, all right, public URLs require valid privacy policies. It means I need to enter a privacy policy here. All right, so I already actually have a privacy policy, and I'm going to enter that privacy policy because I already have, if you look over here under the same domain document wizard, I already created a privacy policy that people can go read, and you can just create your own privacy policy and host it online on the same URL. So this is very easy to do. So I already have a privacy policy, which means I can save this and I can release it to anyone with a link, or I can release it to everyone. All right, so I'm actually going to release it to everyone and confirm and see what happens. Awesome. There it is. It's released to everyone. It's called QR Code Generator. Okay. And so my GPTs, this is the GPT I actually built earlier, the document wizard. So if you guys find it, let me know. Actually, maybe that's the let me see. So this is the link to the document generator. I'm gonna encode this in the QR code. I think that's really cool. So I've got the two starters. So I'm gonna conversation starters. So I'll click this one, generate QR code, and see what happens, because I told it, if you wanna, if the person asks and you didn't and they didn't provide the data that must be encoded, I told it to request the information. So let's see what the respondent. I can generate QR code. Could you please provide the data you want to encode into a QR code? The data can be a text, a URL, or any other information. All right. Yes. So I'm gonna enter this. Yeah. Please encode this string. Awesome. All right. Please encode this string. and it's gonna go and it goes straight into the action. It's very straightforward, and then it will say confirm or deny. This is just to allow the action to be called because it's an external API. So I'm gonna say, okay, I'm good with it. I can confirm this, and it has been confirmed. There is my QR code, and there's a link over there, and my QR code GPT is working beautifully. Now, I used a very simplified sort of, API, but you can, within this API, within these views, you can build an API to anything. You could build an API to your own database in here. You could build an API to external sources. You could build an API that talks to another API. I mean, the possibilities are endless, but I've just shown you when you have a working API, how to then connect that API to GPTs using actions, right? And this is how you add actions to your GPTs, and just like that, you guys, I love how simple the process is. Like, I just built this now, and it's already live, and it's already working, and people can already access it. If you want the link to my GPT, I will actually put this link in the description of the video below, and you can use this and you can test how it works and things like that. All right, so thank you guys for watching. It was amazing. Yeah, see you guys next time.